Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show. I just want to say one thing before I start. 5 days a week, I bring the truth to you. I just want to ask if you could do me the favor and spread the word. I'll bring the truth, you take it, and you disseminate it. Get as many people as you can to come and listen to this show, subscribe and share it, and hopefully what will happen is people that are seeking truth, they're not going to find it on media or in social media. They'll be able to come here and actually get a real understanding of what's happening in and around the nation and the world. It's no secret, folks. A unified free citizenry is the most powerful thing in history. I'll keep doing my part, and with your help, we can grow this stage and give people what they are seeking, which is truth. God bless all of you. I love you. And the truth has arrived. This is Jonathan Gilliam back on a Wednesday episode of The Experts. The truth has arrived. And this is going to be probably a shorter show. I have a dentist appointment today I have to go to, so I've got to cut it a little short. Those of you that are regulars at tuning into this show know that I pretty much stay up all night researching, waiting sometimes for the news cycle to change, and then I formulate the show. And really, there's just a couple things that I want to talk about today that I want to kind of give you some pearls of wisdom, which I just discovered today. Now, other people may know this. This may not be something that is that secret to people, but when I was looking at YouTube, I was going on there, and I was, I always put this show on YouTube as well. Libsyn, incredible platform to do your podcast, and it goes, once I complete the show and I upload it on Libsyn, it goes out and it goes to all these different locations for people to subscribe or download the podcast. And then I take it and I use this program called Repurpose.io, and I can actually turn the audio into a video, and it just kind of gives you the wave form on the picture, and I upload that on YouTube. So you can actually listen to it on YouTube as well. And so when I go to YouTube, what I saw was a video. You know how when you log in on YouTube, or you're just going to see, actually I wasn't logged in yet. That's why I did see it. Because when you're logged in, the news feed on YouTube is going to be geared towards you. But if you're not logged in, it's going to be generic. And the interesting thing is, it is so far left. If you just go to youtube.com and you look at what they have choices to pick from, I mean, it basically is a smorgasbord for the left. You're not going to see conservative stuff. Maybe they'll have Trump on there every now and then when he's speaking live. But overall, it's pretty incredible how leftist it is. I got speaking of that, just a side note, I got an Oculus Quest. Highly recommend it. You don't have to have a computer to use this virtual reality headset. So it's really fun. And actually, to tell you the truth, in the first-person shooter games, I do actually get some training out of it, because I'm thinking as I'm moving. Anyway, I go on there, and they have a store that you can go to. And then they also have where you can go to, it's like Oculus TV, I think it was. And there's one of these applications on there. And so I pulled it up, and the very first thing I see is transgender videos, gay pride videos, all kinds of leftist, activist type of videos. Now, again, I just had this conversation with somebody. Well, it wasn't a conversation. Somebody tweeted at me And I immediately responded to them, and I'll read that here in just a second. And they were concerned. They're a supporter of mine, but they were concerned because I bring up on this show a lot that I don't have a racist bone in my body. I'm not really concerned about people's gender or sexuality or color of their skin or any of that stuff. I'm concerned if you're a good ethical person that has great work ethics, and if I can rely on you, and if you're a patriot and love this country, understand what it's about, and you love Jesus Christ. I mean, I have friends who are Muslim and Jewish as well. It's not my part to judge people. And this person was like, you need to look at Romans chapter 1. And he was kind of coming down on the fact that I don't preach the anti-gay stuff, right? I say Christ's word and his love is for everyone. It doesn't matter, what your sin is. We all have sin. So anyway, the way I responded to him, and I don't think he was trying to be a jerk about it, because all these trolls, they try to be jerks about it. In fact, I'll read his tweet. He said, and this guy's always been a big supporter of my show. He says, Jonathan, I love and respect you, man, but what's with the sexuality reference and your soft spot for homosexuality? As I've heard from you over the years, I'm not a hater or a homophobe. See Romans chapter 1, brother. And so my response to that was, my purpose isn't to judge, but to serve God and country. Romans chapter 1 wasn't written as a scale for me to judge, but as a measure of God's attention to sin. We should all pay close attention. This is very important. This is a very important aspect of what I'm going to get into here. We should all pay close attention because regardless of the sin, those who are guided by desire will lose their vision of God. And that's absolutely true. So, when I went to YouTube, and I feel very strongly about this, I don't condone certain lifestyles. I live a pretty clean lifestyle, but it's not my place to say you shouldn't live whatever lifestyle you want. But here's where I do draw the line. When I go to the front page of YouTube, or when I was on my Oculus Quest, activists in all these different areas, whether it be gay rights or black separatists, or we could even say white separatists for that matter, what you're going to find is that they try to force what they believe upon you. That's why you've gotten all these letters. If you belong to any major outlet or company, you probably have gotten an email. Hopefully it went to your junk email, but you probably got an email of them apologizing for their racial standards in their companies and really making it as though you should be apologizing yourself. The CEO of Chick-fil-A, probably the worst out of all of them. I mean, he literally said Christians need to repent for their racism. I'm not a racist. I don't have to repent. That is one sin I do not have to repent about. And he had a video where he got down and washed some guy's shoes, and it was very odd. It wasn't Christ-like at all, if that's what he was trying to do. I won't eat at Chick-fil-A anymore. They're done with Chick-fil-A. And so, and listen, you can eat at Chick-fil-A, but I'm not going to eat at Chick-fil-A. And I don't like this cancel culture, but I do think it's funny because it's really biting the liberals in the backside because they're getting canceled as well. Hamilton, the play on Broadway, is getting they're going to not cancel it, but they're going to rewrite the history. They're going to redo a lot of it so that it doesn't have the racial overtones, which the whole play is basically about. But anyway, when I look at these pages, they're clearly ran by activists. Now, there's a lot of things that you would not know are ran by activists. For instance, one comes to mind, and I've read it on one of these shows, was a letter from 23andMe CEO. And it was, over the top, virtue signaling, apologetic, and throwing it in your face. Like if you do your DNA at 23andMe, you need to be apologizing to all people that are black. And that's just not the case. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are black, and until recently, those of you that know me and watch the show and have heard or listened to the show and have heard me on radio and TV, I hate saying and pointing out people the color of their skin. But now it is the way it is. People want to be identified with the color of skin again. So, and that's largely in part due to activists. So I have friends who are black, and I love Terry Crews, who is a big, huge, muscled up actor. And I think he was a football player as well, but he is, he's just an amazing guy. And his ethics and morals and standards and his patriot mindset and understanding the Constitution is fantastic. And he was on Don Lemon's show. I'm not even going to play part of the soundbite because it's stupid and it's actually worse than watching The View. And he is berating Terry Crews because he doesn't feel like Black Lives Matter movement really truly represents Black lives, doesn't represent him, and he's been vilified. They called him Uncle Tom and all kinds of racial stuff coming from black people and liberals on social media because of his stance. And it's a very well thought out stance. It's not like I was talking about in yesterday's show where, a million people just feel this way and they don't even know why. It's just the only reason they have is because that's the way you're supposed to feel. They don't think of it themselves. So he is well thought out, and basically he got he didn't get hammered by Don Lemon. But Don Lemon tried to hammer him and make him look bad, but Don Lemon just looks stupid no matter what he does. So anyway, I'm kind of going all over the place here with this, but when I was looking at all these different letters that were coming in, I've got one from JetBlue. I got one from Planet Fitness. I don't do DNA in me, but or whatever it's called, 23andMe. But I have friends that do it, and they sent me the letter. And if you don't know what 23andMe is, that's where you do a DNA swab, send it in. They tell you all about where your ancestors are from, and if there's any medical issues in that DNA that are kind of known. It's an interesting concept, but quite frankly, I don't want people having my DNA, especially these people. And so, I'm reading these letters, and then when I go on YouTube today and I see this stuff, and in one of the videos that was on the front page of YouTube was from the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, I think is how you say her name. Let's see how Siri says her name. I think that's how you say it.
Wojcicki.
Wojcicki, I guess that's how you say it. Susan Wojcicki. We'll say that's how you say it. And it's one of these apologetic videos. And what's interesting is they said they're gonna redo everything and they're gonna make it much more fair on YouTube for people for black people, which I didn't know it was unfair on YouTube for black people. I don't see that anywhere. I'm pretty keen to, as an investigator, to looking, and I would have noticed that. You can kind of notice when things are biased on a page, and I didn't see that. They said they're going to work harder to censor things that are unfair to black people or disagree with black people or limit them from putting their stuff up on the page. I mean, first of all, they're not going to do that for you. And I'm not talking about just white people. I'm talking about conservatives, Christians, gun enthusiasts, Second Amendment supporters. You're not going to get that same protection. And it's not because you're not deserving of it. It's not because, you are treated unfairly on YouTube. I know because I've been censored on YouTube. And you're not going to get that protection. But they feel this need to spill that stuff, okay? But this is nothing new. Everybody knows how this virtue signaling is going on. And I talked about, if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, listen to it. Actually, the past 10 shows have really kind of pushed towards this issue. But today I was stunned by this, okay? So Susan, I'll just call her Susan Wojcicki, I think is how you say her name. She's the third CEO of YouTube. And when I looked at, because somebody made a comment, and that's what's funny is all of the comments, there's like 40,000 comments underneath that video, all negative and slamming her. I didn't see one comment that was positive in her favor, not one. So that it's good, because there's a lot of people that are on YouTube that see the reality of what's happening here. And that does give me comfort, should give you comfort as well. But somebody said something about her sister. She wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for her sister. So I looked up who her sister is. And her sister is Ann Wojcicki, if that's how you say their name. And when you look on Wikipedia, it says she's an American entrepreneur and co-funded and serves as a CEO of 23andMe. Her sister is the one that wrote the letter that if you were with 23andMe, you got a letter from her. And it was the same apologetic, over-the-top virtue signaling, as though the world, was just rampant, and her company was rampant with anti-black policies and people. And it was so apologetic. They said they were literally going to, and they were apologizing for not having, I remember the letter. It was ridiculous how they was apologizing for not having enough black people in executive positions at 23andMe. And they were going to remedy that, as though, first of all, if you own a company that's successful, you damn well better be hiring people that are effective at their job. I don't care if they have, 4 arms and half a head. If they're effective at doing what they do, then you should probably hire that person. The last thing you should be considering is the color of their skin and why they should be hired. It's ridiculous. I don't know if people realize how ridiculous that is, but you cannot, especially in this day and age, hire people that are less qualified or seek out people that weren't seeking the job specifically to put them in a place because of the color of their skin. In fact, if I owned a big company like this, or if I was a CEO, I would absolutely ignore color of skin. I would want to see resumes. I would want to do phone interviews and in-person interviews, but it'd be great if you could not see the color of their skin or gender or anything like that, so you could pick who's qualified for the job. And that's not a racial stance. That's an effective stance. That's why yesterday I was saying, this is a conservative leaning show and I'm a conservative, but I don't go down the same road as the Republican conservatives. This is not a political stance for me. I believe in doing what's effective, slow to change, and not changing things that aren't broken. That's the way. And if you want to call that conservative, that's the way I am. And I find that patriots and respectable, ethical, morally correct people, that's the way that they are. That's the way they live. Now, the surprise didn't stop there. The CEO of YouTube, her sister is the CEO of 23andMe, all apologetic, the same narrative, and ran the same way. They're both in their 40s, okay? Very young. Both worth over $500 million. But then I looked at who, because I kind of recognized this name, who the CEO of 23andMe, who her husband is. And he's Sergey Brin. And he is, along with Larry Page, a co-founder of Google. And he was the president of Google's parent company, Alphabet Incorporated, until stepping down from the role in December of 2019. But it just keeps getting better and better, right? If you know anything about Google, you know that they're corrupt. You know that they are into some shady leftist stuff. In fact, I've got a video. This isn't of Sergey, which actually, interesting thing about Sergey, remember, this is a rabbit hole. It just keeps going. He was born in Moscow, Russia, and came here in 1979 and became an American citizen. Now, there's, from an investigative standpoint, I always look at where the evidence is leading me. And there's some strange stuff about this. The sisters alone and the level that they're at in these companies that one takes your DNA and the other controls the narrative in the videos that people put up. So we already know media is corrupted left, but the citizenry is still split. And all the people who are conservative or Christian that are trying to put up stuff on YouTube have been censored heavily. So one sister is the CEO of this company that takes people's DNA. I find that scary to begin with. What they're doing with the DNA, how they're building. Remember, they build these pictures. Everything is information. The more information they get, the better picture they can build of who you are and, where your leanings are politically, or, if you're healthy. I mean, they could be thinking of all kinds of unethical things, right? So she's the CEO of 23andMe, and the other sister is the controller of this platform, the biggest platform in the world for videos, so that you can get your content and your voice out there. And she has definitely censored people. And then the sister who runs 23andMe, the shady DNA company, her husband is a co-founder of Google who was born in Moscow, Russia. Now, there's some things coming together here that are very odd. And Google is very, very powerful. When I was looking at, he also co-founded X Development LLC, and that is an American semi-secret research and development facility, an organization founded by Google in January 2010. Now, that's kind of strange. I've heard about them before, but also Google is involved with DARPA. Now, and he's worth over $1 billion. So you got a Russian who married one sister who's worth over $500 million, who runs a weird DNA company, whose sister, I'm going to go backwards here on the Wikipedia page, and her sister runs YouTube, and lo and behold, her husband is Dennis Troper, who is an executive at Google. The whole thing, in those four people alone, the amount of control that they have and insight to American citizens is crazy. I mean, it is mind-boggling when you think about how much control they have. They themselves, how much influence and how much they can put out. And remember, DARPA, which they're associated with, worked with Stanley McChrystal, General McChrystal, who's a flame-throwing leftist. DARPA worked with McChrystal and this other social media internet guru, I don't remember his name, to develop an artificial intelligence. It was originally developed for DARPA to use with the recruitment of Islamic fundamentalist attackers. And so they would go on and they would find out where somebody was, basically this is the way it works. They go and they find out where somebody is trying to recruit people, and they disrupt their conversations through the usage of bots or mass. They have these groups of bot farms, which they may or may not be real people, but the AI can actually have a complete conversation with people in arguments and disrupting the conversation, and it's not even a real person. And in other cases, they pay people to go on, and that's what they do. They're a paid troll. They just wait around, and that's why when you see, and I've said this time and time again, when you see what the trolls say, it is the same thing. Like today, because I criticized Bubba Wallace yesterday, I've probably had, 50 or more people say I'm a racist, and just as many people say, because on my website, on all my social media, the first thing it says in the description is Christian. And all these people say the same thing. You should probably take Christian out of your profile. You're not a Christian. So they say the exact same thing. It's like they're given a script of like, I don't know, 5 different things that they can tweet back. And then you'll get like 500 of these people tweeting one of these 5 tweets. It's like that. So now you can see what I was talking about yesterday, how powerful these people, and I don't know if these people are mid-level power people or if they're closer to the top of that family tree. I don't know. I know everybody loves to hate George Soros, but I just have a feeling that George Soros is like these people. He is a player or a limb on the tree, on the family tree of Satan and the left. I think that's probably like he doesn't own Google, and he's not controlling this type of social media stuff. He's action oriented, paying for protests, going in and taking over businesses. What I described yesterday with NASCAR, that is exactly what George Soros would do, except he does it to businesses and countries. What's funny is when that video was leaked last year of Google and their a private meeting that they had with employees, and they were talking about their values, and it was the oddest thing. They never talk about Christ. They never talk about any religion. They talk about they don't even say ethics. They say values. And the whole meeting was very strange. The people that work at Google, very strange. You know who else is connected to Google? Is the lady who said that she was that Brett Kavanaugh attempted to rape her in high school. And she works closely with Google recruits, and she did something with the CIA recruitment. There again, they have a system where it's like little missions, and they have a strategic goal in the way they're doing these things. But there was a part of that. This is one of the other co-founders of Google. Listen to this guy. I don't know what's wrong with him, but listen.
Say too, I'm an alphabet white. I've been working on fiber a bit, and we definitely have fiber builds going on in a wide variety of places, and those are definitely intensive things. So that's one way we're engaging, I guess.
Yeah, you hear hardly anybody clapping because nobody could understand what the guy was saying. I didn't doctor that video at all. That's how he sounded. So, and they all look like they're high. They reference pot, I don't know how many times in this interoffice meeting. And the whole meeting was just talking about Google values. It was a very strange video that got leaked. So, getting back on this whole thing. It's very, very, it's a good picture, a very good example of how when you sit around and you talk to people about the reality, whether they're conservatives or liberal, and you talk about the reality of the control. That's what Terry Crews is talking about, and Don Lemon just went right over his head. Terry Crews is talking about it doesn't matter who the oppressor is. It doesn't matter the color of their skin. Oppressors are bad people. When you look at another example of this, and this is a huge list. When you look at the Obama administration and the ultra left in the Democrat Party and look at who their spouses are, so many of these people, their spouses work at the top of media and news, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN. And it's very similar to the way I've described the deep state with the generals and all these people. They're part of it. These people go to church together. If they go to church, they eat at the same restaurants. Their kids go to the same elitist schools. And somebody explained it to me really well one day. They said, you may have, if you're a normal person, you may have family in this location and that location, and your friends are here. Maybe you grew up over there, but you live here now, and you develop these friends and your circle. You go to eat at these restaurants before this quarantine, or, that's your gym to work out in. Well, these people live in such a way that, Friday they get in a private airplane, they fly to London, and they stay there for 2 days, and then they fly to New York. They stay there for a week and they fly back to Silicon Valley. They may get hungry and want to eat in Ohio, so they'll fly there on Thursday and go eat in Ohio. And that's the extent of their friends. Their world, whereas your world is probably about 30 square miles, their world is the globe. And that's where the globalist mentality really comes in. It's not, I've had this discussion and debate with Rick Unger before. He thinks globalism is just simply economics. And I don't know if it's, I love Rick to death. I don't know if it's because he was a hippie when he was younger, that part of his brain is fried, but he just does not understand the reality of these leftist globalists. Communism is not just Russia anymore, and it's not just certain countries around the world. There's a movement, a clear movement, just like I described how clear the picture is of who these people are and how much control they have in the media and in DNA collection. These globalists control so much for ideological reasons. Has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with economics. It has, I mean, that's part of it, but they are all about control. And that's that family tree that I've talked about. Now, when you add to that the deep state, the SESers, the senior executive service members who are corrupt, and not all SESers are bad, but what you start to see is these relationships. And it's very alarming, very alarming. So I hope that gives you a better picture of exactly, the control that's being lorded over you. I hope it does. Now, I want to just say a couple other things, and then I'm going to cut the show a little short today. I'm going to be in Crocheron Park on Bayside Avenue in Queens on Sunday, July 12th at 2 p.m. for a police solidarity and thank you walk. And supposedly there are going to be a lot of people, over 1,000 people. If you live anywhere in New York, Long Island, New Jersey, I think you should come out there. It's going to be a great day. Hopefully the weather will be good. In fact, I'm going to look at the weather right now, if I can pull it up. And it may rain, actually. I don't know how long it's going to rain that day. But if it looks like the weather's good, then you should come out to that. And I'm going to be speaking there and take part in that. This is how we actually start unifying in this country and building our own wall of patriots. I think it's very important. If you hear these, go out there and do it. Just do it. Don't sit there at home and don't think, well, that's not for me. I don't protest. Don't worry about the protest stuff. Get up and go out there and unify. That's what you got to think of. Think of this as unification. Now, also, I'm going to be on the Wilcow Majority on Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125 today at 2 p.m. And I'm going to talk about this and the importance of it. So if you have Sirius, you can hear that there. Let's take a break for a second, and we'll be right back. And I'm going to cover some of these headlines. And I've got one other thing that I want to bring up, and I can't remember what it is. We'll be right back. How many of you out there have a concealed weapons carry permit? And how many of you with those permits have ever thought about where you would have to use that weapon, when you would have to draw it and defend yourself against an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury? Well, if you haven't considered that and actually trained for it in your mind, you're not qualified to be carrying that weapon. You see, in the SEAL teams and in law enforcement, all these different avenues in which I've served, that is one of the main things that we go over again and again. Where would you have to use it, and what are your rules of engagement before you actually use it? What has to happen? Now, you don't have to be a concealed weapons carry permitted person. You could just be somebody who has a family. You could be somebody who is single and lives in a high-rise in one of these cities where just it's going crazy right now. The fact is, if you have not realized that you can make educated predictions of who would attack you, why they would attack you, where and when it would happen, and how it would be carried out, you need to realize that can actually occur. You can actually forward think these things, but you have to have a skill set. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival is a book, a best-selling book that I wrote that teaches you how attackers look at you, and it shows you how to use that knowledge to target yourself in every aspect of your life, and then turn around and build better defenses based on awareness of who, why, where, when, and how you would be attacked. Sheep Know More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I've got 2 workbooks that go with it. Go check them out, folks. I'm telling you right now, this is not just a commercial. This is an offer for you to get the best type of awareness and training that you could possibly have. It's available anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's out there. Order it. Go get it. Give me your feedback. And if you have questions, you can always reach me on social media, and I'll answer those questions for you. Sheep Know More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. And let's get back to the show. Let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. I can't remember what it was here. Let me see, as Sean Connery would say. Well, there's a couple things. I think you probably have heard this, that de Blasio blames New York City weekend violence on coronavirus, vows to double down to keep city safe, but not double down. He's firing cops and getting rid of the undercovers. He's going to double down in corona prevention. That's how weird this guy is. I don't remember what else the other thing was I wanted to talk about, but I really think that's probably good. Let me look at the headlines real quick, because by the time you get up and you listen to this podcast, the headlines will be clear. And so let me see here. I'm just going to go over like Fox News real quick. UC Berkeley students plan a fraudulent course to circumvent guidelines, avoid deportation, because they're saying now that if you are here on a visa, student visa, you have to go to class. I don't know. I think this is a great headline, and this is a story that you probably want to look into. 1/3 of Ilhan Omar, the leftist fundamental Muslim who's about 2 steps away from being a jihadist, 1/3 of her campaign funds go to her husband's data firm. It goes to her husband's firm. These people do stuff that would get you arrested, okay? The teacher, Litera, I don't know if you remember her. She was convicted of raping her 13-year-old male student, who they later, when he turned 18, got married. And I think they were still married. She died 58 years old. Now, that's all I really saw on Fox News. Let's go over. Oh, I will say that this is the other thing I was wanting to talk about. Karl Rove, right, who I've met him before. He was a nice guy to me. He said that Trump is not advancing his cause by tweeting about NASCAR. I 100% disagree with this, because what happened with Bubba Wallace and NASCAR, which I've railed on over and over again, is it is the perfect example of what is happening in this country when it comes to the leftists and using this Black Lives Matter nonsense, which, the Black Lives Matter movement, which Bubba Wallace is all about, is a communist movement. It does nothing, as Terry Crews was talking about, it does nothing like to prevent these 4 kids that were murdered this weekend in Atlanta. One of them was 8 years old. And they've released videos of that. If you live in Atlanta, go and look at the videos. They have it on foxnews.com. But I disagree with Karl Rove. I think it's excellent that the president spoke out about this, because the reality was NASCAR and Bubba Wallace called all their fans that are white racist. And they use this garage door pull down, which is in the form of a slip knot. And it's not big. It's like, 4 inches. I'm pretty sure Bubba Wallace's head's bigger than that. I know his ego is. But it wasn't a noose. It was a garage door pull. But because people are so sensitive, they took it and they ran with it. And before it was even investigated, they just blew it all up and talked about racism and the fans are racist and all this. They totally killed their brand. So I disagree with Karl Rove. I disagree with him on there. Now, I want to look real quick with the Drudge Report. Again, these things are going to be coming out. The Drudge Report's great. It's like a Saturday Night Live skit. It's all virus all day now. And they're saying that 208,000 deaths by November. Yesterday, I was watching the news, and there was a doctor on Fox News that was saying that, those of you that have immunity, which I have now because I had the virus in April, he's saying that your immunity may not last. It may go away. Well, I mean, they don't really know that. They don't really know anything about this virus. It seems like they've been wrong every turn. They say that Florida is not reporting properly how many are hospitalized. Well, I have news for you. Nobody is. That was my biggest gripe to begin with. I mean, how hard is it to say, yes, this person had corona. We got them laying right here. They succumbed because of the stuff in their lung and they died from corona. Or they got over the virus, but because they were on a ventilator for 15 days, their body couldn't work without a ventilator now, and they died. Don't put that down as a corona death. That's one of the biggest problems, and all these people that are dying, I believe, is because the technology is so bad. Intubation, and I've been told by doctors they could have used CPAP machines, and it wouldn't have been as aggressive on the body. But that's very interesting. Very interesting how they chose not to use CPAP machines. There is one other thing I want to discuss real quick before we go. First of all, Chief Justice John Roberts, I guess he was hospitalized last month. Talk about slow reporting. But he's a turncoat. Don't like him. Saw it coming. And he's worthless. He's going to be a big disaster for us. And trust me, folks, if the president does not get reelected, we may be doomed just because of the justices that are going to leave within the next year, probably. The president, which is very interesting because I was thinking the same exact thing, questions Senator Duckworth's her patriotism. Now, so here's a woman who was a helicopter pilot, and she lost two legs, lower legs, in a helicopter crash. I believe it was in Iraq. And, hey, service is valiant, right? But like I always said about John McCain, your heroic service does not justify from that point forward or from that point backwards how much of a douche you might be. And this, Duckworth, Senator Duckworth, she's a total turd, and she's a leftist, and she's not a patriot. And I totally agree with the president on this. And Joe Biden, of course, slammed him, but also Lindsey Graham is totally distancing himself because Lindsey Graham may actually lose. And I don't want a Democrat to win, but I don't really think it would be that big of a difference if a Democrat won to get Lindsey Graham out of that seat, because he is as worthless as a bag of hammers. I mean, at least with a bag of hammers, you can protect yourself from bad people. Lindsey Graham doesn't do anything. He just, it's just an act for him. And I kind of feel the same way about him as I do about Duckworth. Lindsey Graham, I think he was a JAG in the Army. I think he was a major. I'm not exactly sure what rank he got to. But both of them may have served honorably, but it does not. Just because somebody, you could have somebody who was a gang member who murdered 15 people, and he gets out of jail, and a little girl's crossing the road, and he runs across and grabs her and saves her life so she doesn't get hit by a car. And people say, man, you're a hero. And then they treat the person as though he's just an ethical, moral hero. Well, that's wrong. You can't do that. You're going to be, you're going to pay the price for that. And when you're not going to treat a criminal as though they're just an upright, ethical person after that heroic event. And it's the same thing with Duckworth or Lindsey Graham or John McCain, any of these people who had who served in the military And in the case of Duckworth, lost her legs in a helicopter crash. Thank you for your service. Thank you for going in there. But you're still a leftist hack. And it's even worse than somebody who's a leftist hack who never served. Because if she went through all that, how in the world does she not see the subversive war that's being waged on us? How could she be a Democrat? If you're a patriot, you are not a staunch Democrat. You are not. And I know, of course, like, again, Rick Unger, I love him to death, would probably argue with me about this, but you can, and it's funny because Rick almost got up and walked out of a show that we're on David Webb's show one time. He got so angry because a caller called him a communist that he almost left at the break. And he was mad at both of us because we didn't speak out to the caller because I was a guest along with him. And I said, hey, I didn't say anything because I figured you would say it. I didn't want to step over you. But he hated that. Well, if that's the case, and I need to ask him about this, why would you back the Democrat Party? It is a communist entity that is allowing this subversion to occur in this country. I can't get it. So anyway, I'm with the president on this. I think Duckworth is worthless, and I don't care what her heroic deed was. She's done more damage to the country than she did for the country in an honorable service when she lost her legs. Sorry you lost your legs, but you are no hero. You committed a heroic act in your service, but that does not make you a heroic person. You may have risen to the level of a hero in that act, but this is why you don't make celebrities out of people who've done one great thing or that are politicians. You're asking for trouble when you do that, folks. You're asking for trouble. And I hope that's good enough because that's what I'm going to call it. Now, I just want to reiterate this fact. When someone does a heroic act, like serving in the military, and they're a helicopter pilot and it crashes and they lose their legs, that is a heroic act. But that act does not necessarily say everything that you need to know about that person from that point back and that person forward. You have to look at the totality of their behavior and their actions. And when we look at Senator Duckworth, what we're looking at is somebody who served honorably, but has aligned themselves ideologically and politically with a communist movement, a subversive communist movement in the Democrat Party. She is no hero. Don't mistake a heroic act for who somebody is. It's dangerous. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.